Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee for up to 8 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As the convener of the Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee, I very much welcome the opportunity to highlight our views on the Crown Estate Bill as contained within our Stage 1 report, albeit time constraints will curtail the detail that I'm able to go into on our views. The committee welcomes the devolution of the Crown Estate as a significant recommendation of the Smith Commission report, having previously supported the interim arrangements for the management of the estate, which were put in place in April 2017. The committee welcomes the Scottish Crown Estate Bill and the provision for the longer-term management of Scottish Crown Estate assets, including the 37,000 hectares of land, seabed, mineral and fishing rights, coastlines and rural estates. The bill provides a clear focus on ensuring the estate's assets are managed sustainably by those who are best placed to do so, whether that be the Crown Estate Scotland, a local authority or a community group. The committee supports the intention of the bill, which seeks to move beyond a focus on profitability to encompass other such factors such as regeneration, social well-being, environmental well-being and sustainable development when deciding how an asset should best be managed. This is the right approach, one which seeks to recognise a different ethos in Scotland. However, we believe there is scope to go even further. The committee therefore welcomes the Scottish Government's commitment in their response to our Stage 1 report to consider guidance to ensure that not only are these wider environmental factors taken into account, but that their consideration can be clearly evidenced. As part of the committee's consideration of the bill at Stage 1, we heard from a range of stakeholders, including those representing the estate's 4 rural estates, those representing the estate's non-agricultural assets, and those involved in the strategic direction and governance of Crown Estate Scotland. The committee also carried out a confidential survey of existing Crown Estate Scotland interim management staff to ensure that their views or concerns were captured in our work. The committee wants to place on record its thanks for the evidence provided by all and for the constructive engagement we enjoyed. The committee was pleased to note that many of the Crown Estate's tenants had already noticed significant improvements since the management of the estate had been devolved to Scotland. This includes the creation of a tenants group on the 4 rural estates, leading to improved communication between the tenants and factors. The committee is hopeful that the bill offers an opportunity for further progress to be made. While the committee is broadly supportive of the general principles of the bill, we've made a number of recommendations in relation to what's included in it and what is to be left to further regulation and guidance. The Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee also made a number of recommendations with which the Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee agrees. Broadly, these recommendations seek to ensure that where significant decisions are being taken about the future of the Crown Estate, there is sufficient parliamentary scrutiny of each decision. The committee is conscious, however, of the need to strike an appropriate balance between matters that are operational decisions for Crown Estate Scotland and those that require further scrutiny. The bill offers opportunities to local authorities and community organisations to take on the management of Scottish Crown Estate assets, but the committee believes that the seabed as a national asset should continue to be managed nationally, and the bill should be amended to ensure it cannot be sold under any circumstances. The committee recommends that the Scottish Government outlines clearly which Crown Estate Scotland assets it anticipates will continue to be managed on a national basis and which can be devolved to a local level. Presiding Officer, the extent to which the Crown Estate in Scotland is likely to become fragmented as a result of the bill was a concern of some stakeholders. The committee also considered the issue of cross-subsidisation, that is, where the income from one asset subsidises an asset that is less profitable. This process currently works well on a national basis, but may prove more problematic in future. The committee has therefore recommended that Crown Estate Scotland establish and maintain a list of assets, outlining which are currently profit or loss-making and clearly setting out any associated liabilities. The committee was also of the view that the process to manage the cross-subsidisation of assets should be subject to the affirmative procedure, and a definition of what constitutes significance or significant value in relation to an asset should be clearly set out on the face of the bill. Managers of the Crown Estate Scotland assets can currently retain 9% of gross revenue for reinvestment in an asset. The committee is keen to ensure that the definition of community extends to communities of interest, to allow for broader interest groups to be able to take on the management of assets and for these groups to be appropriately supported in doing so. I therefore welcome the Scottish Government's undertaking to consider this matter further in advance of Stage 2. The committee sees clear benefits in retaining national oversight of the estate's rural estates, offshore renewables, energy-related assets and other cables and pipelines, albeit acknowledging that it may on occasion be beneficial for an asset to be managed at a local level, and we therefore recognise the need to retain provision for this. The committee is content that local authorities should be able to manage smaller-scale tidal and wind projects within 12 nautical miles of shore, where they can demonstrate appropriate expertise. The committee therefore welcomes the Scottish Government's commitment to include this process and criteria and guidance, for this to be available by the time the sections on transfer and delegation come into force, and for there to be further consideration of the inclusion of a definition of good management in guidance. Presiding Officer, Crown Estate Scotland tenants are generally happy with the way in which Crown Estate Scotland interim management is being run. Tenants feel that devolution has brought an increased feeling of connectivity with the estate, improved communication and more involvement in decision-making processes. Tenants regard Crown Estate Scotland as a good landlord and feel that the Scottish Crown Estate Bill offers the opportunity to make further improvements to how the estate is run. The committee seeks further clarification from the Scottish Government as to the rationale for setting the figure for retention at 9%, why there are no plans to alter this at present, and what arrangements they will put in place to ensure that 100% of net revenues generated out to 12 nautical miles will be used for the betterment of coastal communities. The bill contains a number of useful mechanisms designed to improve transparency and accountability. The concept of good management, however, remains undefined. The committee suggests the Scottish Government should consider including such a definition either on the face of the bill or in guidance, and that the process and criteria for deciding the suitability of a potential manager should be clearly set out in guidance. The committee agrees that the bill will bring benefits not just to the estate, but to Scotland as a whole, by ensuring that community empowerment and sustainability are at the heart of Crown Estate Scotland's future. Presiding Officer, I am therefore pleased on behalf of the Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee to commend the general principles of the Scottish Crown Estate Bill to the Parliament and recommend that these be agreed. Presiding Officer.
I call on Scot for up to 7 minutes.